Hello and welcome back to All for United. We are here on the Wednesday night show. We're back again. The football is back, so that means I'm also back. I've successfully avoided talking about transfer sagas, which I'm pretty happy about. Tonight I've got Neil, I've got John, I've got Alex, and I've got Coppo, and I think we're expecting Anton, but he is not quite with us just yet. But before we get into it, can we just say that to like and subscribe to the channel? We've had some excellent viewing figures recently, and let's just make sure everybody's subscribing. We're aiming for 6,000 before the season starts, and I think we're on about 5,800 at the minute. I might have oversold that, but yeah, it's going really well for us. So let's get as many people involved before the season starts. But first things first, guys, and I'll start with you, Neil. Are we going to win it all after yesterday, or is that a dead certainty now?
Of course, we're not in the Champions League.
I can't believe you've asked that question. I mean, clearly we're going to win everything. You know, I mean, what is it? Was it Benji put that we're something like 2,500 to 1 to win the? Was it Ben put that on Twitter? I think we're 2,500 to win the lot. I'm just happy, to be honest. I'm just happy that the one thing I wanted out of the team was a bit of passion. I was interested to see the way they'd set up, and you can see what Ten Hag's trying to do immediately, and that's good to see because he does seem very cool. But I like his I like what he's been doing so far with the team, and a win's great, but it was a bit of passion in the team, and they look really happy to play.
Yeah, where was you? I'll keep with you, Neil, just for a second. Where was your confidence level before yesterday? Obviously, last season was very shit. Where is it now compared to that?
Well, the one game doesn't, one friendly game in the back of beyond. You know, I'm not sure it makes a difference. I know everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon, and that just puts more pressure on them. But my expectations are still exactly what they were the last time I was asked the question. Was I want to see some passion. Because I think he's got to get the fans on side with what he's trying to do. It's been very toxic, the whole atmosphere around the club. You know, with Ollie going, and then I still think he was wrong to get the job in the first place, and I think they sort of doubled down by getting Ranić in, and hopefully, you know, we got the same old saga with the bloody transfers, and you know, I'm same as you, Simon. Until they're stood there in the shirt and they walk out playing in the team. Yeah, when they do that one and that's you know, do the signing video. Until that happens, to me that is just conjecture. But confidence, I thought the youngsters did brilliant. You know, because it's still tough to them to come. It's Manchester United they're playing for. You know, they're playing for the dog and duck on a Sunday morning. And I was very pleased. It's given me a bit more hope than I had before, because we look not too bad.
We saw some glimpses, didn't we, under Rangnick? Maybe like the first half an hour, but
you can see what he's trying to do.
Yeah. There's you can see he's getting a bit of an imprint in the side already, which is good, and it can only bode well for the future. John, how are you feeling about it? I mean, we had some miserable previews towards the end of last season where I think the life got drained out of all of us that were on them. Are you feeling any better after that yesterday? I mean, a fresh start. We've had a few weeks off to get over last season.
After getting slaughtered twice to Liverpool last season, I think it's nice to get a slight bit of revenge on them. It is a pre-season game, isn't it? You'd rather it be in a league game and that. But I agree with Neil in terms of like the shape. But we did play well yesterday. It was pleasing that while it's very early days, you could see the players starting to buy into a system and that kind of thing. We'll go into some of the individual performances. I know, but it was noticeable that people like De Gea's distribution was better than it usually has been for the past few years. It was noticeable that the pressing was quite good. I mean, there were issues about when Liverpool broke the press on our defence, then we weren't quick to respond to that. But you have to remember it is the first game in pre-season and it will come. But it was evident that where some of our weaknesses are, and this where we need new signings, that kind of thing. But for me, it was pleasing that you can see that, right, okay, this is something you can build on. I don't buy into this, or, like they starts with their reserves we played off. Well, usually in a pre-season game, you tend to start your best team or close to your best team to begin with, and then you put the reserves on for the second. Now, for some reason, Klopp did it the other way around. I'm not sure why, but again, it was again pleasing that some of the youngsters and that Charlie Savage, Danny Iqbal, they did very well against Liverpool's main starters in midfield. And it was a good start. Liverpool did make mistakes, but it was pleasing that we were clinical with our chances and that, and hopefully we can build on it, and we can hopefully look to a good season, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think we should probably put a disclaimer on the bottom of the screen saying we know it was only a friendly, because we do know it was only a friendly. But on the flip side, if United were at the end of a 4-0 defeat again to Liverpool, I mean, it would have been painted painted us in a pretty poor light again, wouldn't it? And then people would have been overacting the other way. So I think it's good to have some positivity
floating around. With Liverpool, though.
No. Well, Klopp said that himself, didn't he, actually? And,
exactly.
So I wonder how he's feeling about that now. Alex, we'll come to you. How are you feeling after yesterday? Has it kind of re-energized you, or were you feeling pretty confident going into the season anyway now with a bit of a fresh start and seeing Ten Hag training?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, obviously, transfer-wise, it's been, like pulling teeth, let's be honest. In terms of, you don't really know what's going on. I agree until the players stand there with the shirt in their hand and some silly makeshift transfer welcome video. It's not really
and the piano.
Other than a load of nonsense. In terms of the game, obviously it's pre-season, so you take it with a grain of salt. As was already touched upon, I think it's positive that we did start to see an imprint of what sort of we thought Ten Hag would want, and we've started to see sort of a bit of that already, which after a week, 2 weeks maximum in training is obviously a good sign. I think one of the things I did like was that afterwards he turns around, everyone's like, "Oh, you've just beat Liverpool 4-0," and he goes, "Well, I saw a lot of mistakes. It wasn't good enough."
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the fact that he's not, of course it's pre-season, but other people would have been like, "Oh, yeah, it's amazing. It's brilliant. Whoop-de-doo. We're winning a lot," which we can all joke about, but let's be honest. But I like the fact that, he's like, "No, we played a good game, but I expect better." I like that sort of. It's almost like the perfectionist in them. I like that because that, not to hark back to Fergie or anything like that, but that, it seems like the kind of thing that Fergie would come out with. That kind of thing was it was good, but it wasn't great, and I expect great, that kind of thing. So I like that. That was probably the best bit. Was just that you saw that sort of side of him where he's just good's good. Great's great, but I expect perfect, and anything other than perfect's not good enough.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a balance to have as well, isn't there? You don't want to play down beating Liverpool by such an amount too much, but also, he's got to keep the players' feet on the ground. He knows there's a lot of work to do. I think we all saw mistakes, and it could feasibly have finished 4-4. Let's be honest with you. They hit the post about 5 times, didn't they? And they had plenty of chances, but United took those and took them well. But we'll just come to you lastly, Copper. How are you feeling confidence level wise after yesterday?
I feel a little bit confident, just given the implications of how soon the season will start. As we're in a World Cup year, and we know the break is going to happen in the middle of the season, which I think all of us really hate that at this point. I got a few points that I wrote down, I guess, for later on, but I can honestly say, man, I may have to back out. I just got a lot going on here, and I can't really give my focus, and with all the things going on, I do apologize for that. So
That's fine.
I feel confident. As you can hear, what's going on, it's getting a lot louder in my place right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drop out, man. I do apologize for that.
It's all right. No, we'll have you back on the channel soon enough, I'm sure, man. See you in a bit. Well, in that case, we'll carry on, guys. In terms of performances, then, who impressed you particularly, Neil? I mean, Martial. I think Martial got man of the match, but I thought Sancho had a decent game as well. And De Gea. We're going to talk about all of them, but
I mean, I tore into Martial last year. I mean, you can go back and for me, I'd have picked him up and dropped him off at the airport for, but when he had that sort of, I'm not going to play, but I think you have to give, and I could get hammered for saying this, but I think you have to give everybody a clean slate, because there was obviously stuff going on last year that we had no idea. There's a good couple of books in the last 2-3 seasons that have happened at our club. So Ten Hag, seems to be, we've seen pictures of him talking with Martial, and it sounds like a frightening front three if you think Rashford, Martial, and Sancho.
Yeah,
that's a seriously good front three. I mean, if they can get Martial to, sing a tune, we know he's got quality. There's that we've never disputed. He's got quality. What goes on between the ears? So I was pleased that for Martial, because I did always like him, but after refusing to play, it was that, well, he's dead to me and all that sort of stuff. But Ten Hag's the manager. You've got to trust the manager. And I do. I trust the manager 100%.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's kind of forced to be playing Martial at the moment. Anyway, I mean, who knows whether he fancied him in the first place? But obviously, the Ronaldo situation's kind of forced the issue a little bit. But still, it's still got to perform.
I'm guessing we may talk about Ronaldo, but Ronaldo couldn't have played in that system. The way they played yesterday, Ronaldo couldn't have played in that system. I might get people pushing back and say, but he's not a player that's going to press. So I'm not on the Ronaldo thing. I'm actually not upset about if he wants to go, but for him to release it that he's looking for a move for Champions League, I think that will tarnish his legacy at United for saying he wants to leave for Champions League and he's not prepared to tough it out a little bit for the club. And we created and took this kid from Portugal and turned him into one of the greatest players that the world's ever seen. So I'm feeling quite bitter about that particular incident, but I still trust the manager 100%. If he says he's got to go, then he goes. I think Ten Hag seems to have this control. He looks like he's in control, if you see what I mean. And I love that. I think the best thing about yesterday was Ten Hag, I think, as well. Just watching him and seeing the way he reacted to it all, I thought, yeah, that's all right. Nothing, not getting carried away. It was just it was a training game. But I was very impressed with Martial. Just his work ethic was pretty good, and I like that. And that's what's been lacking with him. Yeah,
it was good to see him pressing and actually working for him. I mean, he got his goal through pressing as well, which was obviously pretty pleasing. Yeah. Alex, what was your thoughts on Martial's performance, and what were your kind of thoughts of him previously? I mean, I think a lot of people were excited about him when he first came on the scene, and I've kind of backed him in his periods where he's not had many backers. But what's your stance on him now?
Martial's one of those where he's always frustrated me, mainly because you can see it, we know how talented he is. Nobody's questioning how talented he obviously is, but it's the fact that it's sort of like, you get like maybe a good half a year or a year, and then you don't get good for a few years, and then you get good again, and it's that sort of thing where people go, oh, but he still needs his chance. And it's like, this isn't a player who's been here like a couple of years who's still getting used to the league. This is somebody who's been here for 7 years. It was 6-7 years at this point.
I think it might be his 7th season.
Yeah, 6-7 years. So like it's a long time at this point. So that excuse no longer flies. And he was a month ago. I was saying sell him, because I do still think probably in the long term that we need to sell him. At the moment, considering Ronaldo's probably on his way out. You probably keep him in terms of you can't sell everybody.
No.
Realistically, but at the same
can't-
time, I don't see long term how, unless Martial suddenly becomes consistent all of a sudden, which it's not happened so far. So what's to think he's going to do it all of a sudden? At some point, he's going to need. I feel like he's going to need to be moved on. It's just going to be, it's just going to need to be a case of, well, thanks very much, but we can't keep doing this one more season. It doesn't work forever. At some point, you need to cut your losses. So I don't have that much time for Martial, mainly because I feel like we've all been here before and we've seen these sparks of the we know we know how good he is. Like, there's nobody's turning around and going, he's a shit footballer. Like, nobody's saying that. That'd be ridiculous.
A few people might have, but
maybe a few people. But that's well, Twitter reckons De Gea has never been good at all, which is obviously nonsense. So Twitter reckons anything. But at the end of the day, his ability as a footballer has never been in question. But whether he's consistent enough and has the sort of commitment and drive to be that's the other question entirely. Because at the end of the day, say Ronaldo gets sold next week. Obviously, he's not going to, but say he gets sold for argument's sake next week, and we sign 2 weeks later, we wouldn't, because we'd waste 4 months negotiating it, even though we can't. Say we then sign another striker, he probably ends up in a childlike huff again because we've signed another striker. Like, he always seems to go in a huff because we sign another striker. It's like, mate, it isn't just you. We used to. You go way back. You are the 4-man strike force of Cole, York, Sheringham, and Solskjaer. I don't remember any of them going off in a half like a 5-year-old because one of them started over the other, or then you had, obviously more recently, in like the 2008-2009 period, or 2009, you had Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez, Berbatov. I don't remember any of them going off in a half either. Like, Tevez is a waste of space, but that's besides the point. That happened afterwards. But, the worry is that Martial sort of, how long until his nose gets put out of joint again?
Yeah, I think there is a sense that he's kind of got to be the main man, and I think the like you touched on, the Ronaldo thing is going to play a big factor. But John, do you think he benefited from Ronaldo not being there, basically, like because of what Alex alluded to there, basically saying that, he likes to be the main man, and I think he probably feels he's got a chance if people in the club probably know better than we do whether Ronaldo's actually on his way out, and maybe he's got an inkling that he can be the main man again.
I do think possibly, because I think if Ronaldo goes, then we're definitely keeping Martial, and I think he'll probably stay regardless. And I think, Stu is obviously regular. He always touch upon what Martial brings. In a way, is unique when he is in good form, and that the problem is his consistency. We don't doubt his quality. Yet, there is a player in there. You just need to get the best out of him. And I think that, I remember back to, Solskjaer's first full season when you have Martial, Rashford, and Greenwood, where the interchange that was going on between them, and he was in many ways the focal point. And I think that what he does, he can draw players away, and if Ten Hag managed to find a way to get like your Rashford, your Sanchos, and your Langers and that, if you got Martial up top, you can bring players in towards it, and that creates space for all the other players to interchange that, and I think Ten Hag will look to play with a fluid front three. So if you have a main man up front, then there'll come a point where Martial might go to wing and Rashford goes through the middle, or maybe Sancho or something, you know, and I think there will be that interchange. I think that's what Ten Hag will probably look towards. And I do think it was noticeable yesterday that Martial was doing that. And I think that Sancho, again, he had a good game. Rashford, he didn't have his best game. I say probably out of the three was probably the quietest one and that kind of thing. But I think what Neil point touching upon with Ronaldo, he's obviously a brilliant goal scorer. There's no denying that. But I think in terms of like bringing other players into play and like trying, if he doesn't go, will other players take his place? That kind of thing. I don't think he's as effective that way, and I do think that I think it did help Rangnick yesterday, and I do think if Ronaldo is to go, also that him not being on the tour might actually be a blessing in disguise because it allows Ten Hag to build with the players he will have, and I do think Martial did grasp it yesterday. The big question is, can he do it in the long term and that kind of thing? But I think if Martial, he's the type of player, I think he just needs a manager to put his arm around him saying, like, you can do a job for me. And I think it's about confidence with Martial. He's got the talent. He just needs a manager to say, right, you're a good player. I want you to do this. And I think if he has that backing and he is trusted to be the main man or whoever, then you might get something out of him, I think.
Yeah. We'll come to you in a second, Neil. Just quickly, John, do you think they can replace Ronaldo's goal? If Ronaldo does go, do you think that front three can cover for what Ronaldo, we lacking Ronaldo if he does go? Because that was kind of how it was before Ronaldo came. It was spread between the front three.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when you're talking about goals scored, yes, Ronaldo is capable of scoring 30 goals a season. I don't think anybody else in our team is capable of doing that. And he's, in many ways, he is the most clinical goal scorer of our team. But it did show last season, if there were a lot of goals where Ronaldo didn't score last season. If he's not scoring, who is getting the goals? And that's what I mean. If you have the interchange and that, and a fluid front three, if one, you have a main person up front, but then if they go to wing and someone replaces them, it's very hard to defend that. So in many ways, you could have a situation where Ronaldo might get you 30 goals, but your front three might only score you 50. Or you might have two players who score 20 goals, let's say, and another player gets you 15. Well, that's 55 goals rather than 50. Well, those 5 goals could make a big difference. So, yes, I do think, and you think of the United teams of old, how many times did a United player actually top the goal scoring charts in the Premier League, even when we winning Premier League titles? Probably not many times that the United player won the Golden Boot. But in terms of like who scored the most goals in the Premier League season, United were ahead of everyone. So, and I think it's about the number of goals you score as a team rather than how many one person gets for you.
Yeah, definitely. Just quick hello to Jarvis. He's saying hello, how the Alpha United community doing? I think we're doing all right, guys. I don't know about everybody else, but you can say in the comments. Neil, you wanted to make a point. You had your finger up. I could see it.
Yeah, I think the answer to the question regards who's going to get Ronaldo's goals, the system should get Ronaldo's goals. Sort of alluding to John's point. We should have 3 players up front that should be quite capable of scoring between 15 and 20 goals. Because that's how it was when it was Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo. We scored goals. The whole team scored goals. And I think the system and the manager have got to replace Ronaldo's goals, because the way I see it, I think he's already out the door. And all this BS about it, we don't know, but it just something's obviously going on. But I didn't look at the United team yesterday and think what this team needs is Ronaldo, because he just wouldn't play. He just cannot play in Ten Hag's system. He's been brilliant for us. But it's a new system now, and the system will replace Ronaldo's goals. And what Martial needs is consistency from his management from his manager. And if he gets a run in like John said, he's a seriously talented footballer. But it's just he's got to sort his brain out, and hopefully Ten Hag can do that.
Yeah,
as
definitely.
far as like I said previously, they've all got a clean slate, but I think the system needs to replace the goals.
Yeah, well, hopefully this team can now start actually taking notice of the manager and actually pressing. And it looks like he's more hands-on with actually telling them how to do it rather than possibly expecting his coaching staff to do it, which I think Rangnick and Solskjaer were both possibly guilty of. But
I tell you one thing though, just so I'm sorry to butt in.
No.
So far, Erik Ten Hag is definitely levels up from the previous 2 or 3 managers that we've had at the club in terms of just the way he seems to be around the club. It's like, very sort of cool and calculating. I love that. I love that part of him.
And can I just make a point about the goals scored? City won the league last year without necessarily a main strike who's a recognised goal scorer. I mentioned about the Martial, Rashford, and the number 11. From Solskjaer's first full season, they actually outscored Liverpool's front three that season, even though they won the league. And it's interesting, like City signed Haaland, for example. Now, Haaland might get you 30 goals for City next season, perhaps, because he is very talented and capable of doing that. But will Man City score the same number of goals? Will they score more goals than they have done this season as a team? And ultimately it's a team game, and it's about how many goals you get as a team rather than how many one player gets for you. And I think, I touched upon, I remember a few months back, I watched a Cantona documentary when he was playing. He said he remembers when he first joined United, Mark Hughes was like the main forward. And he made a point that I think it was in the second Premier League season, there were 4 players who scored 30 goals. I think it was Shearer, Beardsley, Andy Cole, and somebody else, I can't remember. He's like, that's all well and good, and they're brilliant. Mark Hughes will get you 20, but he'll ensure that Man United score the most goals as a team in a season. That's what you got to think about, not who will get you the goals, but as a team, how do you score the most goals? That's what the system is towards.
Yeah, Alex, like Neil says, sorry, it is the system that does it, and we saw the style of play, we saw the pressing from the players that were actually playing yesterday. Obviously, Fred in midfield always works hard. Bruno runs around and obviously Martial played his part in that, got his goal through pressing. Obviously, Ronaldo would change that, but how impressed were you just with the kind of the intensity and in quite a difficult climate, really, as well? It's not the easiest place to be running around and charge after the ball. Admittedly, only for 45 minutes for the main team, but still.
Yeah, I think we saw. Again, we sort of, even though we're sort of first game in, they've only been in, the internationals have only been in a week. The rest have only been in 2 weeks. And in that short time, we're starting to see that imprint of what we expected Ten Hag would want from his team, which can only be a positive, because if we're starting to see that after a week, 2 weeks, then you start to think, well, what could we potentially see after a month, 2 months, or 3, 4 months, like halfway through the season, because at the end of the day, this isn't, as much as everyone likes to think that Ten Hag's going to be this like magician who waves a magic wand and suddenly, we're brilliant again. Like, we don't like that to be reality, but in reality, this is a longer term project. This isn't a 1-2 year project. This is a 3-4 year project.
Oh, it is.
At the minimum. At the minimum. It could be more than that. We have to admit that. So the fact that we're seeing that so early on is a positive. I think in terms of going back to the Ronaldo thing, one of the things that with Ronaldo at the moment, which is sort of worrying me, is this idea, and obviously we don't know. Like the media might be chatting shite. We don't actually know what's what. But like this talk that like Chelsea don't want him, PSG don't want him, Bayern Munich don't want him. My concern is that we end up in a situation next season where Ronaldo's staying and everyone's like, oh, Ronaldo's staying, he's committed. And in reality, the only reason Ronaldo's staying is because no other bugger wants him. And that's sort of my main concern, where it's like if Ronaldo stays, fine, he can stay. Nobody can tell him he can't stay. But if he stays, he has to stay because he's committed 110% to United, to Ten Hag, and to what we're trying to build. And not he's staying because nobody else wants, nobody else suitable wants him. That's my concern. If people are turning him down, my concern is it gets into a situation where he stays because we're the lesser of a bunch of evils and there's nobody else suitable, nobody else who he thinks good enough who wants him, and that isn't acceptable. He needs, if he's going to stay, I don't think he will, but if he does stay, he needs to stay because he wants to stay, not because there's no other choice.
Yeah, you got to worry, personally, I do anyway, that how much of a disruptive force Ronaldo, an unhappy Ronaldo, could be. I mean, because I think we saw it a few times last season where allegedly he spat his dummy out over, for example, not being in the game, not being in the side against City because Rangnick wanted to play a certain way, which Ten Hag want to do as well. Yeah, go on, John.
I do remember, if you remember back to 2008, obviously when we won the Premier League and the Champions League, and he wants to go to Real Madrid that summer. And basically, as we know, said, give us one more year. If you remember the start of the season thereafter, it did take him a couple of months just to get going. He didn't have the best start to that season, that maybe because he was upset he didn't get his move. Now, in the end, he did end up having a good season for us. We'll remember his goal against Arsenal in the Champions League, Porto and all, and he scored some crucial goals. But that's another risk that the first few months next season, if he doesn't get his move, he might be, a bit upset. It might affect his performances, but potentially.
Yeah, I think the other, just to jump in, but my other concern as well was I saw, and this again is just a rumor. This is just what the papers are saying. So it could be right, it could be wrong, but it was that United, to potentially keep him happy, as is sort of common knowledge, is that there's some sort of percentage drop on players' wages when we don't get Champions League. Whether that's the 25%, which is rumoured, or whether it's less than that, we don't know. But, by the sounds of it, there's a percentage drop when we don't get Champions League. And some of the rumours seem to be that United potentially, whether this is right or wrong, are considering removing that for Ronaldo just to keep him happy. And in my eyes, that would be the biggest mistake going, because that is going to just cause an unhappy team, because it's like, we're not going to take it off Ronaldo because he's our player of the year. Like the fans voted him player of the year. What's stopping De Gea, for example, turning around and going, well, I got voted player of the year, so why am I getting a pay cut? And then what's stopping Martial turning around and going, well, why am I getting a pay cut? I missed half the season. Or Van de Beek, Donny turning around and going, I missed half the season. Or, Palestri turning around and going, well, I missed the whole season. Like, where does it end? If you do it to please Ronaldo, where does it end in terms of other players going, well, that's not fair? Like, why should Ronaldo? I get he's Ronaldo. I get he's arguably one of the greatest players that's ever lived. But, what we don't want is be back in a situation where we have a toxic dressing room an unhappy team and like people who are, in a dressing room that, frankly, by the seams of it last season, half of them were arguing amongst themselves, I think, half the time.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I
is,
think,
that is the last thing we
I
want
think
to end up.
that's it. You make a good point because and let's be clear, yeah, Ronaldo wasn't the worst player last season. Obviously not. There were players worse than him. But let's be clear, Ronaldo didn't play well every game last season. I mean, I don't like use the term stat padding, but a lot of the goals he got were towards the end of last season. It was hat-trick against Tottenham. Okay, that was a good opposition. You got a hat-trick against Norwich, which did win us the game and that kind of thing. But it wasn't like it's because he started to score goals later on in the season, like when, let's say, we were out of the Champions League and that kind of thing. So we weren't in the running for that. So it wasn't like he was scoring every game. There was a spell last season where I think he go 8 or 9 games without a goal or something. So it wasn't. Yeah, he did contribute more than most players last season, but let's be clear, he didn't, like all the other players, he didn't have a great season, even though he scored 24 goals. A lot of it was, 2 of them were hat-tricks, for example, and he was brilliant in those games. If you take those away, and if you take away his Champions League goals, which obviously were important in the groups, that he didn't actually score that many goals in the Premier League last season.
Yeah, they were in quite big gluts, weren't they? Like I said, 3 in one game, 3 in another. There was plenty of games where he didn't contribute as much as you maybe would have liked. But yeah, moving on from Ronaldo anyway, because I think we should give some other players a bit of a limelight. We're going to come to the younger players that started in the second half in a little bit, but another main focus yesterday was David De Gea. Now, a lot of talk before Ten Hag came in that he wouldn't fancy him and he'd possibly go with Dean Henderson. Obviously, that's not happening because Henderson is elsewhere now for the season. So he's obviously sticking with David De Gea. There could be reasons such as his massive wage and maybe not being able to sell him. That could be part of it, but he could fancy him. But it looks like he's got him coming off his line and being a bit more proactive. That high line and the pressing kind of forces De Gea's hand in that sense. Do you think he can kind of add another dimension to his game, Neil? Because obviously he's very hands-on in the coaching and he's obviously going to have a big say over how De Gea operates.
I think De Gea's got no choice. He has to step up. I mean, you can see, a lot of us were saying Henderson is better with the ball at his feet, and Henderson's, I mean, have Forest got an option to buy him? Because if they have, and they stay, there's no option to buy, so it's just a straight loan. I think the pressure's on De Gea in some respects because he's got to do it. I think it's as simple as that. I mean, he looked much more comfortable with the ball at his feet, but it wasn't a game that came with a lot of pressure. If you see what I mean, it was just a straightforward, friendly. Played it like miles away. How relevant that is to the season. It's how good he's going to be with the ball at his feet when he's under pressure. Because and also the other important thing is we've got to have a consistent back four to work with him. All the great teams we've had in the past were always, you start with a solid foundation, and I think if you can get centre halves and full backs and him all on the same page. God, I hate saying cliches, by the way. I think that will be good, but I think he has no choice but to step up. He's under a bit of pressure, but let's see. Let's judge him after 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not
doubting his ability as a keeper. He's a brilliant shot stopper, but he needs to add this dimension to his game. I think he has absolutely no choice.
Yeah, and he did get criticised for that quite a lot yesterday, but it was noticeable that he looked a bit more comfortable on the ball, and Liverpool were closing him down, maybe not as ferociously as they were doing a league game at Old Trafford or Anfield or whatever, but still, I think there is a bit of credit due to him in that sense, because it's not something we've expected of him for a number of years now, and hopefully it's something he's working on. Alex, did you have him as your player of the season in that show we did a few weeks ago. I think you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
I think you kind of thought
Yeah.
you kind of forced into it. Kind of forced
Yeah,
into it, weren't you?
but
But what
to
did
be
you
fair,
what did you make of De Gea yesterday?
I think there was really good signs. I think there was. I've always been one that sort of said I've never quite jumped on board of this like, oh, he's screwed. You know, he's done. Like I've always believed that De Gea is a player who, what he's good at, he's amazing at. Like, you know, in terms of shot stopping wise, he isn't just world class. He's arguably the best in the business. You know, in terms of what he does, in terms of shot stopping, we know how good he is. He's arguably the best in the business at that. The other things, you know, there's all these things about, you know, he needs to be as good a passer as Edison. He doesn't. In reality,
He just needs to be good.
Yeah, he just needs to be good. He doesn't need to be Paul Scholes and goals good. You know, that doesn't, you know, it's not the reality of it. Yes, from what the statistically and statistics can lie, but I think it was 27 out of 33 passes completed. And some people were like, that's not good enough. It's like, well, that's plenty good enough. That's what you expect, 100%. Like, that's not realistic. You know,
a lot of them are long distance as well.
Yeah, exactly. 27 out of 33 is good. I think there was a few times where he got a bit of pressure and he sort of did a bit of a dummy. And, you know, he did a bit of a dummy and, you know, he then passed it away. Great. You know, there's a few times he chipped out to his fullbacks. Brilliant. Like, the thing is, the amazing thing is people forget this, but he's capable of that. We know he's capable of that. When he was first signed from Atletico Madrid, one of the things that was always talked about was that he was a good passer of the ball. And then that sort of went downhill over the years, which then leads to the question of, was it being coached particularly? Like, you know, it leads to that kind of question. At the end of the day, he has had, I think he's on like his 8th goalkeeper coach and like 7 or 8 goalkeeper coaches in like 11 years. And people go, it doesn't matter. It does matter. Like, in terms of consistency, that's
of message to him. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, everybody's going to want something different. And, you know, that's not ideal. As good as he is, that's not going to help. So I think it was good that we saw that. We saw that sort of him coming off his line. We've seen it before in terms of he is capable of coming off his line and reading the play. Maybe it's just somebody giving him the confidence to kind of go, I want you, you know, it's that kind of thing where it's like, I want you to do that and I'm going to back you to do that.
Even if you make a mistake,
Yeah, because if people are expecting him to come off, I think I saw the start, was it like 8 or 9 times he came off his line yesterday, which is brilliant. That's a brilliant number. But if people are expecting him to do that every single game this season, and for there not to be 2 or 3 occasions where you might get it wrong, well then pack your bag, go home, and like just shut up shop, because that's not going to happen. Like, you are going to make those, like, that's bound to happen. So it's that sort of, maybe he just needs that confidence of the manager turning around to him going, I want you to do this, but know that if you make the odd mistake, I'm not going to like slaughter you for it.
Yeah, although the fans on Twitter might.
Well, the fans on Twitter might, but like, let's be honest, he could, you know, he saves a last minute penalty against West Ham and he was getting slaughtered because he didn't catch a cross 30 minutes before. Like, you know, you can't win sometimes. You can't win on Twitter half the time. But, you know, I think sometimes, even somebody as good and as established as De Gea, sometimes you just need that confidence from your coach of being like, I'm going to back you to do this. You know, because a lot of my criticism, Spain's a different thing, but like, people go on about Enrique. People forget that when Enrique first came in, De Gea was the number 1, and he was trying to push De Gea to be a sweeper, and De Gea did it. Like, there was a few games where he was sweeping, and Enrique was out, but good, great. And then there was one game where he swept, and he got it wrong, and he got caught out, and they lost the game 1-0. And he's never played another game for Spain in like a year and a half. And like in my eyes, like, people can go, oh, well, it's Enrique realizing he's not good enough. And it's like, oh, it's Enrique expecting somebody who's not necessarily good at that to do something different. and then the first time he's made a mistake, he's gone, well, pardon my French, but fuck you, I'm not interested. Like that.
How many mistakes is current goalkeeper made though?
Exactly. Well, that's it. Exactly. Or Edison. Like Edison will make great passes, but how many mistakes does he make in terms of positioning, in terms of conceding weak goals? Plenty in my eye. Like he's a weak. He's got plenty of errors in him. So maybe it does just take that one. Just Ten Hag turn around and going, I want this from you. I expect this from you. But know that, not necessarily going forward, but know that this season you're my number one. If you make 100 mistakes, you're out. But if you make one mistake, I'm not going to throw you to the wolves because that's not fair. No.
Well, he can't really do that this season anyway because he's only got Tom Eaton behind him anyway. John, John, you've got the choice. You can either add to the De Gea chat or you can move on to the younger lads, particularly Zidane Iqbal and Charlie Savage. Your choice. If you've got a point to make on De Gea, feel free. But other than that,
I'll just quickly make a point on De Gea. I think I saw something on social media today that apparently Varane was asked about De Gea's distribution and all that. And he's like, it was part of the manager's plan. I have noticed one thing with the training cameras, the pictures of training when it was at Carrington, and De Gea was involved in, like the possession thing, and I do wonder how much he would have been involved in training to that degree previously, because it is noticeable that yesterday, even though it's just one game for Scone pre-season, that that its distribution was a bit better. Not perfect, but it was an improvement compared to what we have seen before. So, we'll have to wait and see. But as for the youngsters, I touched on before that I thought Charlie Savage and Zidane Iqbal were very impressive because obviously Liverpool, understandably, with their first team that played in the second half, because you have Fabinho and what's the name, Thiago and that, and they did play reasonably well. They did cope with the pressure and that kind of thing, even though it's pre-season and that, and and Charlie Savage do like a Maradona on Salah, which was funny and that, and I thought they did a good job yesterday, and I was impressed with them. Obviously, Palestri took his goal really well. It was a good move, obviously, by the credit and obviously deservedly for breaking in, but it was a good link up between Palestri and Ahmad, and they completely sold Van Dijk, didn't they, for the fourth goal, which was funny as well. But I thought it was impressive to see how the youngsters played, particularly against some of Liverpool's better players, and of course they didn't concede either, which is obviously of note and that. But I do think that they did do well during the game, and obviously I don't expect them to play much this season. Hopefully some of them will get good loan moves and that, but I was impressed with them yesterday.
Yeah, I thought they'd give a good account of themselves, and like you said, to keep a clean sheet against arguably, a pretty strong Liverpool team in the last half an hour, especially. There's no mean feat. I mean, I think United rode the luck a lot throughout the game anyway, full stop, didn't they, with both 11s? But I think there was some definite pluses, and they'll take a lot of confidence out of that.
This is what I mean. I actually think Charlie Savage and Zidane Iqbal actually played better against their first team compared to McTominay, who played against, their lesser players. I'm not saying McTominay played badly, but I actually thought Savage and Iqbal were actually had better games than what McTominay did. So that's one way potentially looking
I think the fair point in that is that, Savage and Iqbal played a better Liverpool midfield, arguably than Fred and McTominay did. And I think that's the thing we saw. from both of them, I think, there's obviously we know there's talent there. That how much of that talent is sort of going to be realised immediately, we don't know. I think they're at the perfect age, sort of, for Ten Hag, where it's like he can mould them how he wants. You know what I mean? They're sort of raw in the sense that like they're like, to use some sort of analogy, but they're like fresh clay that he can mould to suit him, to suit his team. They're not molded into a particular manager's style as some older players potentially are. They are sort of fresh in that sense. So he is, Ten Hag does have that freedom where, if he does see that potential in them and he does think they're good enough, then he has that sort of freedom to, mold them and mold their style and how they approach things to how he sees it, as opposed to necessarily players who you're trying to not knock out bad habits. That's maybe not the right word, but like where you're maybe trying to knock out sort of habits that they've come under previous managers that doesn't necessarily suit what Ten Hag wants to do. That if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Neil, who impressed you? I think you're going to say similar names to who John kind of touched upon there, really, but you need your mic on, Neil. Can I unmute you? Yes, I can.
It's Savage for me, to be honest. He looks more than capable.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's how old is he? I can't remember how old is he. Is he still a teenager?
I think they're both 18, 19, aren't they? They're not.
Yeah. I mean, when you can imagine when he fills into his frame, he could be a hell of a player. I mean, I do. It's down to John. I've watched a bit more of the youth games when you get the chance. And Savage to me looks like he's got, I think whether because he's left-footed and all that stuff, but he looks like he could be. He looks like he could make it and push on and get into the first team squad. And yeah, there's a chance he could go on loan, but I think he'll learn a lot more than Ten Hag and being in the squad. I think they all will. So I think they'll all be pushing to stay and at least be in and around the first team squad, so they get the benefit of Ten Hag's coaching. Savage to me stood out.
Yeah, is there possibly some merit of them staying around for the first half of the season, working with Ten Hag, and then going out on loan?
I think that's a good point, actually. So they can get 4 or 5 months under the belt, and they might go in the January window. But I think it's important that they get bedded in to Ten Hag's system. All of the youngsters, and they've looked really. They've all looked impressive, but Savage is the one he looks like he could be the real deal with a bit of luck. Unfortunately, his dad's a nut job. But and that's an added pressure. That is stupid. That's going to be an added pressure hopefully, because his dad should help him. Hopefully, better handle all of that. But I've got high hopes for him now.
Yeah, Zidane and Savage.
I mean, if I was McTominay, I'd be a bit worried. If I was McTominay, I'd be a bit worried about the way Savage played yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a while before we see him properly in the first team. But yeah, like I said, I think it would be beneficial to keep him around.
I think it's Neil touched upon a good point that with Ten Hag, you think of the Ajax job. They're used to bringing in talent through to the first team and that. And I think obviously we've spoken about for hours on this channel that the gap between the under-23s and the first team is such a massive gap, and you got to ease people into it. And I think that's one thing Ten Hag will look to try and do is forge a link and maybe try and get a path where you get the best talent in the under-23s and that to try and ease them into the first team if they're deemed to be good enough and that. And I think that's something that he might work towards eventually. Hopefully, if here for a number of years. But I think he'll probably see some of the youngsters and think I can maybe do a job with these. It'll take time, but I think some of these I can see them potentially playing in the first team.
Yeah, and that's without even seeing like likes of Garnacho, Hannibal yesterday. I think Ethan Laird didn't come on either, did he? I don't think there's. I can't see much happening for Heath Chong personally at United anymore. I think
He's
that
about
may have gone, but
24 now, I think,
yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah. Lastly, well, two final points really. First of all, for you, Alex, what did you think of Malacia yesterday on the signings front? And then apparently there's talk of Lisandro Martinez being imminent. I think there's stuff going on Twitter, but I haven't got time to actually read all this stuff. So if someone can enlighten me and notice any more, then feel free. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of messages saying that Martinez is or Martinez, I'm not sure how you say it, is imminent. So yeah, your thoughts on both, really?
Yeah, I think the Martinez one, from if I just bring it up, was that it's imminent according to Fabrizio Romano. That's what he's saying. Looks like.
Well, that's it then.
Yeah. Board mission, was it? It's imminent. Board mission in Amsterdam revealed yesterday is described as positive and successful. Agreement close for more than 50 million euros. United hope to seal the deal in the next 24 to 48 hours. So it's looking positive on that front. I think that will be a positive. It's a positive sign. He's a great player. What I'm interested to see with Martinez is whether he's being signed as a centre back or whether he's being signed as defensive midfielder. That's what I'm interested to see, because we know that he's. He seems to be more than capable to play both. My interest is whether, because at the end, he is, if you think about centre back, he is relatively short on the centre back side. Like, is it like 5'8" in terms of Premier League? You can think of him up against somebody like Haaland, who's, man mountain. You can't imagine that would necessarily go. So it'd be interesting to see whether he's viewing, especially if Maguire is staying captain, and is it Maguire and Varane still as defence? I think there's no necessarily guarantee that he's being signed as a as a defender, or whether he's being signed as a midfielder. I think that's the interesting bit there. We have to trust Ten Hag there, because what we do know is that he knows him. It's not like he's signing somebody who thinks, oh, he looks good, but I don't really know much about him. Like, he knows somebody who he knows inside out, and that's perfect, because he knows what he's capable of. He'll know what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are, and where his limitations lie. That's ideal. Like, there's no. Of course, there'll be a bedding in period with the club, but there's going to be no bedding in period in terms of the manager. The manager knows what he's capable of. That's ideal. In terms of Malacia, I think you saw glimpses of what he's capable of. He's in terms of going forward, he's clearly he's keen to get forward. He's good at going forward. Defensively, he's got that strength as well. I think the question with Malacia is whether he'll start the season as a first choice. I don't necessarily think he will. I think we'll probably start the season with Luke Shaw. I think Ten Hag, especially in those first few months, will probably look to go for more experience than he will for, sort of youthful sort of boyishness. So, I think he will go for Luke Shaw probably first few months, and then maybe Malacia can potentially sort of replace him down the line. You saw positive signs of what he's capable of. I think what's worth noting for everybody, because we know that United fans on Twitter love to get carried away and love to brand somebody amazing after 5 minutes, but also like to brand somebody as shite after 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's worth remembering that he is, as much as we need players who are ready here and now, he's not necessarily one of them.
Yeah.
And he is still young, and there is still that development period, but he's clearly got the ability to be as good as we'd like him to be. I like the fact that he came in and went, I want to be as good as Patrice Evra, I mean, I like the fact that the kid's setting the standards that high, because that's as high as and that's as high as it gets in terms of left backs for United. You're talking Irwin, Evra, that kind of mold. I like the fact that he's coming and going, I want to be as successful as Patrice Evra. In reality, if he's half as successful as Patrice Evra, he's done an amazing job.
He's done all right. Yeah.
I like the fact that he's setting his standards that high. I can appreciate that in the kid.
Yeah.
But I think
John,
it's worth remembering that there is still that development process still to go on.
Yeah. Yep. John, your thoughts on the imminent Martinez news, and is there a shout that it's possibly a bit of a Daily Blind signing? And I know he didn't play defensive midfield very much, but he has done. And I think there is a sense, like Alex touched on, there's Varane and Maguire to knock out the team there, and Maguire's the captain. Varane's. Is there a sense that?
I'm just wondering whether Varane has underlying injury or something. I can't see him being fit for every game, and that. I think, I mean, I've not really seen much of Martinez, but what I have seen of him, I think Teco like the Daily Blind there. I actually quite like Daily Blind when he was with us. I think he was a good team player. One thing I noticed about Daily Blind, what he was quite good at, was that, playing the long diagonal ball, and he used to like in his own half. I think it was Van Aal's first season. A few goals we scored that season came from Blind being in his own half and playing a diagonal ball. Much like Lindelof does Rashford sometimes, and now it led to goal. And just looking at what I've seen of Martinez, he has set up some chances, some goals for Ajax, playing similar balls to that kind of thing. And obviously it's the left-sided centre half and that kind of thing. I'm not sure if he might have played at left-back at certain occasions. I'm not sure. But you can clearly see that he's something Ten Hag sees as important to his plans at United, someone who is used to the way he likes to play in that kind of thing. And, when we talk about sweeper keeper, he will want to push the team on, we'll almost have the defence on the half line at times. And therefore, the defenders are sent out important, for playing the balls to the attackers and that kind of thing. And I can see Martinez being that type of player that will look to progress the ball and that. So, I think in regards to his the way he wants, but I can see it being an important signing. Yeah.
I agree. I think he does see him as a multifunctional player, because he obviously has been his manager and he has played him in all sorts of different positions. But it will be interesting to see where he really plays him mostly. I think, but there's a good point about Varane. He couldn't really hang your hat on him last season, but Lindelof played a lot and he did all right to cover, but we have got a lot of centre backs at the moment, so some need shifting out. Neil, your take on the imminent Lisandro Martinez news? Do you know much about him? Because I'm not going to claim to have seen him too many times, to be honest with you. But
I've seen bits of him, but probably my mantra is going to be: we've got to trust the manager. He knows the type of players he wants. He's like Alex said, he knows exactly what Martinez is about. So whether he signed him as another centre half or whether he signed him as a midfield, because we do need a defensive midfielder. I mean, Jesus, we've been saying it we've been saying it for years. So maybe, but I just trust the manager when we get like that. But I'm fed up of, De Jong was imminent about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we've agreed a deal and nothing happened until they're stood there going, "Here's the shirt." Nothing's. I think it's a lot of paper talk and a lot of conjecture, and Sky Sports putting it on just so they can get viewers, and Talk Sport putting it on so they can just get people to phone in. That's all they are. I just want to see him in the shirt. But I trust the manager on it completely.
Yeah, it's a bit tedious, isn't it? But once it gets to the end game sort of stage of transfers like this, that is when it becomes interesting. You kind of switch onto it more. But I feel like we're all in the same boat on the transfer saga front. But
Sky have still got their still got their transfer deadline day clock ticking down. I think it's like 50 days. I mean, I don't know what.
I must say, I can't stand the transfer window.
No, it's all a load of. It's all a load of.
I honestly think. I mean, people will disagree. I think I would just do away with the transfer window. I really would. Well, I think it was better back in the day, to be honest.
I think the funny thing is Sky still run transfer deadline day and all that. Like they are still the exclusive, like on news. Like I don't know if people
remember half an hour behind at least. Yeah.
Yeah, but it used to be like I don't know if people remember this, but like it was maybe like 10 years ago or whatever. It used to sort of be like if Sky Sports says it, it's pretty much good to go. You know it's pretty much.
Yeah.
Now it's like Sky says it. It might as well be the Sun reporting it. It's like Sky says, and it's like and we'll be signing Wesley Sneijder tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? That's how likely it is.
Yeah, it is. I'm in the same boat, but we have covered a lot of transfer stuff on this channel over the last few weeks, and people have had some really good chats and people that are in the know. And that if that is your bag, this channel is good for that, as well as chats like this. We can offer a bit of everything on All for United, but yeah, you're not going to get too much transfer chat with me. That's why that was at the bottom of the pecking order on this particular show. But we're here to talk about Liverpool game, not transfers. I'll let the other guys deal with the transfer stuff. But
we've waited 5 years for a trophy, and we win a trophy in Ten Hag's first game.
Some say
decent Liverpool.
Some say it's the best trophy.
Aside,
some say it's better than the Champions Leagues. Yeah,
we're not getting carried away. That's the fourth final Liverpool been in the season not scored.
Might as well continue that.
Best team ever.
Yeah, we must be. We must be. Also, I wanted to just say how good was Fred's goal yesterday with his right foot.
I can't believe it. I didn't have the commentary on, and I thought the referee blew to disallow the goal.
Yeah,
so it's Fred just lobbed the keeper with his wrong foot. I mean, it was Alisson in goal as well, wasn't it?
Pastor Fred? I don't know if anybody saw the alternative commentary.
United.
It's
like, brilliant.
It was
take me to church.
You can take us all to church, and the Scousers come to church too to repent on stealing a neighbour's bike.
You remember that Shandy when he tried to lob? Was it Chelsea last season, wasn't it, in the last minute? And then yesterday I was like, that's what I was meant to do.
Was it the 0-0 against Chelsea a couple of years ago where he tried to hit one with like his right foot from like 30 yards?
Yeah, and the other just missed.
Like the post, and Ollie was like wetting himself. Like wetting himself on the sideline.
I think we were all surprised he got it that close, wasn't it? It's like, it's going to end up behind the shed stand or whatever.
I think it became the running joke. I seem to remember Solskjaer making a lot of jokes about we keep telling him not to shoot, but like he doesn't listen. I think it became like the sort of the running joke within the team was that he never scores.
Yeah, I had
he has scored a few good goals with his right foot. You think of the Palace game last season, the top corner. Maybe that's the secret. Game shoots on his right foot.
Maybe he doesn't know his right foot. Yeah. I had the MUTV commentary on, and the commentator just sounded like he'd given up as soon as Fred had a shot, and Fred's chipped in. Oh, it's got in. Very surprised.
I didn't know it was him at first. I was like, that's a lovely goal. Is it Sancho or is it Rashford? No, it's Fred.
To be fair to Fred there, and with all due respect to what's his name, Stuart Gardner or whatever, he sounds like he's given up on every goal. I still don't think he's a great commentator. He sends you to sleep. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Well, we'll quickly move it on. We're just going to wrap it up, guys. But it's obviously maybe not obviously Melbourne victory next, but it is Melbourne victory next. I think Friday morning, 11 o'clock, which is a bit inconvenient for us since we've got to work and stuff. But yeah, Nani has just signed for them, which is an interesting one. Maybe we'll see him. I normally do predictions and team lineups and all that sort of stuff on the preview show, but we're not going to do all that fanfare right now. But let's just have a quick speculative score prediction from you, Neil. What do you reckon? Melbourne victory, the mighty Melbourne victory.
I tell you, it's a hell of a name, innit? If you put victory in your name, you better be a good bloody side.
Melbourne
Glory as well. Perth Glory as well.
Yeah, they got some balls, those Aussies. Who says Aussies are arrogant? What are they now? I just want to see progression on from what we saw in terms of the system. The result is sort of irrelevant in many respects to me. It's just a continuation of what Ten Hag's doing. I don't know what sort of team how strong he's going to put a team out, but it's just progression on from what Ten Hag's done. And I'll do a prediction. I reckon they could win 3 or 4. But I want to see the progression and the positive feeling that it's crazy. They've had the first pre-season game, and in some respects yesterday, and having a successful tour makes you realise what a shit show it's been for the last couple of years. Because Ten Hag, he's showing up the previous couple of managers massively in just a short period of the time. And I wasn't sure that he was going to be the answer, Ten Hag, but I like his style, and that's what I just want to see. Progression on from the Liverpool game, and no injuries.
Yeah, that's a big one though. Yeah, Alex, what? Well, yeah, we'll kind of continue on that point. What do you want to see on Friday? Any particular player? And yeah, give us a score prediction just for the heck of it.
Yeah, I think largely along the same lines is that we want to see that sort of continued sort of progression, as we've already touched upon, as we've seen sort of we've seen sort of the beginning of what we expected Ten Hag to want, so we want a bit more of that. In terms of the team, I'd like to see us mix it in a bit more, because I felt like the other day it was sort of like, the first half was sort of like the first team, almost like, and the second half, bar De Gea, for most of it, was the second team. So maybe we could sort of mix that in a bit more, and sort of, it would be nice to see maybe, how the kids can do in with, how somebody like Charlie Savage could do in a team with Sancho and Bruno and, players like that. How, that would be interesting, rather than seeing them so very well then playing with the players they're used to playing with. Yeah, it would be good to see them sort of mixed in, and this seems like the obvious game to sort of start mixing them in with the experienced lads as well. So I think that would be a particular. Obviously, hopefully De Gea is able to play. Like, we don't know in terms of, because he seemed to pick up a slight knock against Liverpool. I don't think he trained today either, so I don't know what that means. But nobody seems to be saying anything. So hopefully that's just. Yeah, if he doesn't play one game, it's not a big deal. But, we'd like to obviously have an update on what's what with his slight, hopefully it's just a slight niggle. But, no injuries is obviously ideal. It would be ideal. I'd say maybe let's go 3-0. 3-0 would be. Let's go with another clean sheet. I'd like us to start keeping clean sheets again. It's a foreign idea, but imagine a team not conceding a goal every game.
Yeah, not being 1-0 down all the time. Yeah,
it would blow your mind. It would be like a miracle.
Christmas in July would be beautiful. John, what do you want to? What do you want to see? I mean, as Alex just pointed out, though, this game's probably a decent one to mix the players in, because we've got a lot of Premier League opposition coming up. So the one against a lesser side is probably the good one to mix players round in, and then against the Premier League opposition, maybe prepare for the Premier League. So you kind of want to see a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, I do think so. I'm not sure if Melbourne. I don't know when the Australian season. You might have to factor in whether Melbourne victory in the middle of their season. Maybe that can be a factor as well. But I don't know when the Aussie season starts and finishes. But yeah, I think I agree. Yeah, I think he'll probably look to change it up a little bit. They haven't touched upon it, that kind of thing. But like Van der Beek didn't have the best game in the second half against Liverpool, but that might have been a lot to do with it. He was playing with the youngsters and that kind of thing, so it might be good to give him a game playing with some of the better players. Like see how he plays with it, like Rashford and Sancho and that kind of thing. It'll be good to see him get involved in that way. It'll be good to see, maybe see how Wan-Bissaka does with starting a game, that kind of thing. And I just think it'll be good to, like you say, change it up and, maybe play the odd youngster, from the start. Maybe you might play Langer from the start, that kind of thing. So it will be good to change it up a little bit. But I do think you got to try and I'm thinking Ten Hag will is like, well, what do I regard as my main team? I know it's early on in pre-season, but you got to have an idea like what your best team is. Obviously, he'll get his players in and that, but so you still got to think, right, well, it's more important that I get these players playing more in pre-season because they'll be important for me for the start of the season. And I think in terms of prediction, I would like to see Rashford get a goal, for example, because he did have a couple of chances against Liverpool, which he did fluff his lines, unfortunately. But I think it'd be good for his confidence just to get a goal and that kind of thing. And I personally think I might go 3-1. I think maybe I won't mind Nani getting a goal against us, But yeah, I'll go 3-1.
And it has to be Nani, yeah. Otherwise, no goals. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Right. I think we're going to leave it there, guys. I think there's another show on Friday night. So I imagine they'll be touching on the game on Friday morning. So I think it'll be Reese hosting that one. But whoever it is, make sure you join in. I just want to say, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and sharing All for United. Like I said, we're trying to aim for 6,000 subscribers on YouTube by the start of the season. So if you're watching and you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. And also, make sure you give all of our guests a follow on Twitter. All the handles are there. So give all these guys a follow. And we'll see you next time on All for United. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bye.